So today's target is MangaKamen, a commentator whose content consists of Pokemon, My Little Pony, and trying to rip apart theories made by MatPat. He rarely deviates away from these topics, and after finding out he made a video on Scott Falco for his newest episode of Side Assault, the first reaction I had was, oh hey, really? Now for those of you who don't know Scott, he's an animator on YouTube, most commonly known for his Side Assault series, a brand of videos made to critique various in-game characters, and in this case, video game series in general. Now before I start, let me change it into something more fitting. Gliscor, I choose you!
Pokemon's been around a long time. The premise has always been pretty straightforward. Wander around a world inhabited by monsters and use and abuse them for your own personal gain and glory. Nice, wholesome fun. But with a game that's been around for so long, surely you'd think there'd be a lot of changes to the series. It wouldn't just be the same game with a fresh coat of paint like so many games do for their sequels and prequels and reboots. Surely they'd change enough of it to make it feel fresh and fun, right? Right?
Well, they kinda do. I mean, this is kind of ignoring the whole new mechanics such as abilities, held items, double battles, triple battles, rotation battles, so I wouldn't say they're adding a fresh new coat of paint every generation. However, I know you're not talking about just that. So, yes, the main series of the games do have a formula that isn't all that different from the incarnation on the surface level. The Pokemon Company has done a lot more than just the standard of video gaming. They've done dungeon crawlers, puzzle games, fighting games, trading card games, and a couple of mobile games. I guess those just don't count apparently.
That's most likely because they don't. All the examples you brought up have nothing to do with the main games. They're all second or third party games that are non-canon to the main series.
However, with Pokemon, it's almost a fleeting fancy. Yeah, tons of us still love Pokemon. It feeds our nostalgia. But when you think of it, every Pokemon game is just a glorified expansion pack. Sure, Mario games get called out for being samey, but they still offer large variety, even in their mainline games. Mario 64 plays insanely different than Galaxy, but at the end of the day, they both still feel like a Mario. They run, jump, and collect stars. The unique gravity of both games just makes them feel different. But Pokemon doesn't really have that twist, no unique spins. The game is always just these turn-based battles.
That's not main series.
Brilliant! Brilliant!
Now before you get on my case and say that this is a side series game, he does bring up the Mario series as a whole, which while yes, the main series of games for Pokemon, as I said, are strictly RPGs, that is ignoring a whole other side of the Pokemon series. And looking at the other games outside the main series, there are well over 30 titles that are not in the same base format as the core series. And that's the big issue I have with this video. Pokemon does have variety. Sure, the formula in the core series is pretty much the same for about 20 years, with a lot of major tweaks going on, but Scott outright ignores all the other games that have the Pokemon title on them.
No, Mario games, spin-offs included, do not follow the same pattern like the Pokemon RPGs. Each new game changes ever so slightly, yet it still retains the feel of a Mario game, be it kart, party, or the good old platformer. With Pokemon, the only changes are in the non-canon sub-series, or the little mini-games and stuff that add nothing to the plot.
With the most unique thing being a new type. Not to mention with their trailers nowadays, they literally spoil about 80% of the new rosters, so you don't even get to have fun discovering them, which with copy-paste games needs to be there. There's also all sorts of dumb rules that don't make any sense even for the in-game canon.
Alright, while I said that Scott has a good bit of footage, the fact that you're showing Shadow Mewtwo, who's only available in Pokken Tournament, a fighting game, is weird here. Why put this here after you just got done saying that the games never divert from the original formula, then put a scene of an official fighting game?
My goodness, how thick is your skull, Kamen? First off, whether or not Pokken is canon does not matter here. Second, when Nintendo said Pokken Tournament was an official fighting game for Pokemon, they meant they licensed the game. It's not part of the main series, you
Watch your profanity.
Put that fucking Litten back in its bowl. It's got no business here. Wait, but you just called your friend? Yeah, because we're wild, cut from the same cloth. I've known this guy my whole life. Where'd you get that charge bug, huh? Same place you got that Litten?
Look, man, should I just...
No. I got this.
Look, if you're gonna fight with two, I'm gonna do the same. It's just like a duo battle.
No, it's not. His dual battles have trainers. This fight just had a bunch of pussies.
I just want to finish this fight fast and get the experience. Well, good luck, cause I ain't gonna take my turn till that little bitch goes back out of the battlefield. Huh? What do you think of that? Whoop. Whoop. Nope. No running. It ain't your turn. Still Meowth's turn. Maybe I'll call for more help, who fucking knows?
Look, I want to say that the animation here is pretty good. I mean, sure, I could nitpick and say that the mouth movements of the Meowth was a little off, but that's just a nitpick on the presentation. But my real issue here is that the joke drags on. We get it. SOS battles don't make sense. And you can consider this my own subjectivity, comedy is blah blah blah, but the joke lasts for over a minute, and it doesn't make sense since, frankly, you can't even call out another Pokemon during SOS, and the only one capable of stalling in battle is the player themselves. I don't know, the joke doesn't make sense to me as a Pokemon player. Seriously, the joke has been made pretty much by everyone. And you want to know how you could have actually backed up your point? Since that in previous games, namely Generation 5, when you were attacked by 2 Pokemon at once, you could use 2 Pokemon against the 2 wild Pokemon. And you don't even have to animate it, just look up video footage of that happening on YouTube.
The issue was that in SOS battles, you can only have one Pokemon out in battle. He couldn't run because the Meowth refused to end its turn because what Scott did was against the rules. Scott was trying to show how stupid it was to not do something just because the game doesn't allow you. Also, when were you able to start double battles with wild Pokemon? You used Gen 5 as an example, but nope, those battles are with trainers alone. The only example I could come up with this was Horde battles in Gen 6, but you couldn't call for backup in those games either.
That's Pokemon at its core, a turn-based RPG, which of course isn't bad, but it is monotonous. The games do a nice job of adding a few fun features that they'll toss out the next game though. Like, for real, why can't my Pokemon follow me around anymore? Especially now! They have the assets for every Pokemon.
They have the assets? Well, let me say this. Considering, one, that in the more recent games we've seen Pokemon be at their regular sizes, that would cause an issue with the gameplay. If you had huge Pokemon following you around, like say a Steelix, there's a chance that they'll phase through the backgrounds if you go into more enclosed spaces, or they'll block the view of the character. And since there's a lot of overview shots when you enter in a new area and that get annoying, and 2, the fact that just because they have the assets doesn't mean they'd be able to program movement into the game for almost 800 Pokemon. Just imagine the amount of data and space and coding it would take to do that. And the games themselves would have to have a lot more storage space for them, and this is a handheld game, you know. And 3, technically you can ride on Pokemon. While it's not the exact same concept, the fact that you can interact and ride on some Pokemon is actually a pretty cool concept.
Objection! Just because they have the assets doesn't mean they can't program them. If the 3DS can calculate and store more than 800 different Pokemon and their individual stats, along with various other details, why not do the same with the animations? Actually, scratch that! They do have animations! They're used in every battle you throw your Pokemon in. And where do ride Pokemon fit in your argument? All that does is shoot you in the foot! If ride Pokemon can be implemented without obscuring the player and phasing through walls, that's all the more reason the walking animations should exist in-game. In fact, games like Yokai Watch and Fantasy Life have teammates that follow you around without obscuring your view. So with all that in mind, take that!
Pokemon does try to differ, but not enough. It still tastes like the same game. I mean, if I eat a cheesecake and I love it, then wow, I know I love cheesecake. But if you give me another cheesecake that's prepared the same as the first with just a few chocolate shavings on it, it'll be like, alright, I mean, that's still tasty, but... And then boom! Third piece. And I'm kind of full of cheesecake at this point. This one's the same as the first two, but with strawberry on top? Well, dang, I mean, this is nice, but where's the chocolate? You can't have that. Why not? You clearly have the stuff to make it. Because fuck you, that's why. Here's your bill. And even though you essentially ate the same dessert, each one was a little more expensive than the last.
Alright, a few things wrong with this analogy. One, you're ignoring the pie menu here. Seriously, if you don't want to keep eating cheesecake, then why go with the cheesecake special? And by that, once again, you're ignoring the other options that the Pokemon company has put out there. And you've shown that you know about them, so the only one whose fault for ignoring the different games is you, Scott.
Secondly, inflated price? No! Pokemon Sun and Moon, at least in the United States, cost around $40, which is actually the standard for the new games, and in fact I'll provide a link that shows the standard price for the Oros was $40. The same for Generation 5. Granted, I'm using GameStop, and GameStop sucks, but they don't usually reach around the $50 range, save for a couple of older games, which are hard to find.
That was an analogy, and you know it. The Cheesecake was an example of how the Pokemon games only add little details to spice up the newer installments, and whether they were good or bad, swap those details with something different each time they make a new game. And the rising price is a comparison to the quality of the games, not the actual prices. The cake is the same, it's the price that's a lie. Or in this case, the quality, I guess. It's a good thing your head is a pie right now, otherwise I'd throw one at you, you clown.
On top of that, even though they try to change it up, you essentially still have gyms. Totem Pokemon fights are alright, but they don't really provide a challenge, and most of the trials essentially boil down to facing the NPC trainers in the gyms from previous games. There were puzzles and minigames in other gyms. I don't know why they thought this was different.
Well, to be fair, they do add quite a bit of changes. For Kiwale's channel, you have to identify changes in the dancing routines. For Mallow's trial, you have to use the searching ride Pokemon ability to find ingredients. And for Acerola's, you have to go ghost hunting with your camera. It's not standard fare with the gyms, and while I will agree they could have done more, it's still quite a bit different than what the Pokemon games normally do.
Sorry, those aren't changes. Those are excuses for battles. While you did have to spot differences in Kiawe's trial, you still had to fight after each quiz. Wild Pokemon would actively fight for the ingredients in Mallow's trial, and Acerola's trial was... They aren't even trying to hide it at this point.
For a game that's trying to be new, what's to stop it from swapping up some of the dumb formula, like these big bad gym leaders only using 2 or 3 Pokemon of the same type, and then having them act surprised when a literal 11-year-old beats them in battle? What's to stop them from having more fights like Red or Blue? Most of the rivals nowadays are just dumb. They're just dumb. Look at it, he's dumb. Ugh. Oh.
Wait, what? We went from complaining about the gym leaders and the island challenges to talking about the rivals? Wait, what? And Wally's a dumb rival? What are you even talking about? Are you talking about personality? Are you talking about their teams? What are you talking about the design? Scott, what do you mean? See, it's this kind of thing that causes backlash. People not explaining. And I love how you're ignoring Gladiator. Which people have debated that Gladion is a callback to the older rivals like Silver and Blue. And yes, Gladion is considered to be your rival in Sun and Moon. Bulbapedia, thank you very much.
While Scott didn't elaborate what made those rivals bad, taking a look at the examples he showed on screen, you could put 2 and 2 together. These are trainers that would go out of their way to stop your progress just for a fun little battle. None of them feel like actual characters. They leave the moment you beat them and serve little to nothing for the plot. Gladion and the other rivals are no different. You can just crop Brooding Edgeblonde out of the game, and hardly anything would change.
I have played Sun and Moon, and I was having fun, but I barely invested time into it. And I was excited for the game too, but while I was playing, I forgot to save one day and I dropped my 3DS and the cartridge popped out. I had lost 2 hours of work, and honestly, I have not been able to bring myself back to playing it. Why? Because I thought about it. I thought, I don't want to do this again. But it wasn't like another game where if you lose, you'll redo it because it's fresh. Even though I hadn't beaten Sun, I feel like I had. Because I knew I had. I knew...
One moment, please.
Not okay!
I will never understand why people say this. You did not finish the game, and you expect to be taken seriously on this? Look, I get that he says that in the segment after this he felt like he had already beaten the game and could predict what would happen, but when you're going on about talking about the games and try to reflect the entirety of the whole series on that, I know it's an assumption, but Scott's making an assumption on the game as well, and with his vagueness, it's hard to tell how things are going and what he's getting at here.
Oh no. I get the feeling this curtains blue thought process of yours has been hammered into your skull. Scott said he knew he beat the game because he knows how the game will end. It's like the Michael Bay Transformers sequels. They've become so predictable, you won't even feel like watching until the end.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. Wants to get my giblets.
But you can't have them!
some of the changes just irked me. Like, why is Pikachu the only Pokemon that has voice lines? I get that he's the mascot, and it's not horrible, it's just annoying. Imagine if you were playing Skyrim or something and you had a run-in with a bear early on. It tosses you a wink and says something like, "Oh, what's up, this is me, the Skyrim bear. Oh, I'm the mascot of Skyrim."
Well, that was cringy as all hell, but seriously, Pikachu's call only starts in the beginning of the battle, when it's called out and when it faints. It's not like you're subjected to it throughout the entire battle, which is what I got from your little skit of yours.
Sure, at first you think it's cute, but as you progress, this bear keeps showing up no matter how hard you try to avoid him, and he's always just saying something stupid and out of place. Like the anime voice for Pikachu is cute at first, but it really just stands out from the other Pokemon.
Then don't use Pikachu! Seriously, you've stated in the segment that I skipped that you have your main battle use the EXP share to grow your Pokemon, so just have Pikachu in the back slots until you get to a level you want to evolve it and then use a Thunderstone.
And while yes, Hao does have a Pikachu in some of his battles, once again it's not spouting off one-liners throughout the entirety of the battle, and he does eventually evolve into a Raichu. Even then, Wild Pikachu only appeared in 2 places in the entire game, and both of those require SOS battling. See, this is why you finish the game, or take a few minutes to look up what you're saying. You don't need to stuff your own foot in your mouth.
Not only can you find Pikachu in the earliest parts of the game within the wild, there are also other trainers that have their own Pikachu.
Like I said, the games don't need an immense overhaul, but that doesn't mean they couldn't stand to use one. Not something super drastic, but maybe even basic like action commands a la Mario and Luigi. Pokemon sort of does this now with the Pokemon being able to dodge or do more based on affection, but what if instead of luck or affection, they were tied to action commands? Nothing overly complex, but maybe you can time a button press to take less damage or even dodge if your stats are high enough.
So, you don't want an overhaul, but you want to completely overhaul the battle system.
Brilliant!
And before you say that's not what he said...
Just something a little extra to keep battles a bit more involved. I mean, whenever I watch the Pokemon anime and they're like, "Oh, fucking dodge that thing," I want to do that. I want that to happen.
Or for a bigger change, take Ni no Kuni. In this game, you collect monsters and fight in a 3D environment, so what's to stop Pokemon from doing the same thing? To that extent too, maybe adopt a Tales of style, where each directional special is just one of your Pokemon moves.
Don't need an immense overhaul, but that doesn't mean they couldn't stand to use one. Not something super drastic.
Sure, if you go on those routes, it'd be more of a spin-off or a departure, but maybe that's what Pokemon needs.
It'd be more of a spin-off or a departure, but maybe that's what Pokemon needs.
At this point, I don't think you have feet anymore. The heck did you shoot with? A minigun? Shotgun? Clawitzer?
Why can't Pokemon go the route of Zelda or Final Fantasy and make a big departure while still keeping what makes Pokemon, Pokemon? Oh, wait, I know why. Because that'd mean that they'd have to try.
Well, screw you too, Scott. Seriously, that will be my only insult towards you, but wow! How pretentious can he be? And before people point out he was making a joke, yeah, sure.
You do know his series is called Side of Sonic, right?
Which is the perfect segue into my latest announcement. Instead of editing and animating videos myself, I'll just upload giant clips of me and my friends playing Overwatch with zero editing involved. Enjoy. I'm not actually gonna do that. I have like some small semblance of artistic integrity.
Stretch comparisons! Comparing Pokemon games to gameplay commentaries, making games with countless assets, features, and working with code, to a video that has become the laziest form of video making on this YouTube website.
You know, I want a donut. I'm sorry, was I not supposed to go off topic? He isn't even comparing Pokemon to gameplay commentaries. He was comparing the effort of adding changes to Pokemon games to that of sloppy, unedited commentaries. Alright, with that all out of the way, final thoughts. For the entirety of this commentary, you've been ignorant, thick-headed, and terrible at making claims and examples. You have this thought process where the curtains are blue is the only thing that matters, and all that oppose that mentality shall pay with their puny mortal self. The errors I found were so easy to fix, it makes your videos seem a bit sloppy. Try to think more flexibly about the content you are viewing, and let some friends or family review your keyframing, animations, scripting, and whatnot.